Okay, we're going to start chapter 1, which is the organization of the human body. So you can see here's the outline of the sections from your book, and a lot of this is going to be more related to lab. Okay, so anatomy and physiology as an overview. Anatomy is looking at the structure and the relationship among structures. Sometimes it might call it form. And then physiology is how the body functions, so how the body parts work. So anatomy, science of structure, physiology, study of function. And just to go back, so as we go on through the course, you'll see that sometimes structure dictates function. So for example, when we get to skeleton, the ulna looks like an ice cream scoop, which is nice because it needs to be a hinge to bend around the part of the humerus so that it'll work like a joint. Okay. So organization of the human body, we have a couple different levels. We have the chemical level, which is made up at the very smallest level from atoms to molecules. So atoms are elements. They can't be broken down into anything further. When you have two or more atoms together, they form a molecule. So it could be the same thing, like H2 would be two atoms of hydrogen, which make up a molecule of hydrogen, or they could be different atoms, like H2O, three atoms to make up a molecule of water. When you have a lot of molecules put together, we have what's called a macromolecule, and the example here in your PowerPoint is DNA. Once you get those macromolecules together, eventually we'll get to the cellular level. Your book doesn't have it here, but you would go from there to organelles. So cells are the basic unit of life. They have all the functions and characteristics of life. So cells would be the basic unit of life, whereas atoms are the basic unit of all matter. So don't get those confused, because sometimes I'll put it like that on a quiz. So some of the functions of life include growth, reproduction, responding to the environment, using energy, and maintaining homeostasis. When you have several of the same types of cells together, you get a tissue. So in this case, we're talking about smooth muscle. We have a single smooth muscle cell. Now we have a bundle of them together. That's a smooth muscle tissue. When you have different tissues, there's four major tissue groups: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. When you have different tissues working together to perform a function, then we get the organ. So the example here is the stomach. So you can see that we have epithelial and connective tissue covering it. You have muscle, so the muscle can contract to help break down the food. And you're also going to have some nervous control. So you have several different tissues here. When you have several different organs working together to perform a function, we're now at the system level, or the organ system. And in this case, we're talking about the digestive system. And when you have several systems together, you get the organism. All right. So this kind of just goes over what I just said. The chemical level, atoms are the smallest unit of matter, and molecules are two or more atoms that are joined together. Cells are the basic structural and functional units of life. They're the smallest living units in the body. And types of cells are muscle cells, nerve cells, blood cells, bone cells. So there are lots of different types of cells. Okay, those are just examples. Tissues, groups of cells to perform a particular function. And again, the four basic types: epithelial, connective, muscle, nervous. Whoa, did I go backwards? Sorry. Organs are two or more different types of tissues with functions. So examples of organs would be the stomach, heart, liver, lungs, brain, etc. So the example that they use here, tissues are joined together to form organs similar to the way cells would be words, tissues would be sentences, and then paragraphs would be like an organ. Systems are related organs with a common function. And again, the example here, so digestive system, cardiovascular system, urinary system, reproductive system. And then the organismal level is the largest level, and that's all the systems to combine to make an organism. Now, in this case, we're talking about humans. Okay, we might do fetal pigs or some other things. So this is only assuming that you have a multicellular organism. So, for example, if you take microbiology, you would stop at the cellular level because you might have a few multicellular organisms, but for the most part, bacteria are single celled. All right. So these are the systems that we're going to be talking about throughout the semester. The first actual body system that we're looking at is integumentary with the skin. So the skin is actually the largest organ in the body because it covers your entire body. So we're talking about your skin, hair, nails, sweat glands, oil glands. Some of the functions regulate body temperature with sweat. It helps. It's really your first defense against infection because it provides a barrier. Through sweating, it helps regulate temperature. It also gets rid of some waste. You need your skin, the melanin in your skin, to make vitamin D, and you also have a lot of sensory receptors like touch, pressure, hot, cold, pain, and it helps provide insulation. Skeletal system will be the second major organ that we get to. So bones and joints and associated cartilage. So the function of the skeletal system primarily is to support and protect the body. So you know that the brain is protected by the bones of the skull, the heart and the lungs are protected by the ribs. But it also aids in movement. It doesn't do the movement itself, but it gives an area for the muscles to attach so that when the muscles contract, they pull the bones with them to provide movement, like a lever system. If we didn't have bones there and the muscles contracted, you'd be flopping around like an octopus or like one of those little air inflatable men at the car dealership. Another important thing is that bones help store minerals, so it's a very good source of storing our phosphate and calcium for the body, and it also produces the blood cells. So blood cells are produced in the skeletal system, not in the cardiovascular system. The blood cells themselves are part of the cardiovascular system, but they're made in the skeletal system. Then we have the muscle system. When we talk about muscle system, we're specifically referring to skeletal muscle tissue. These are the ones that are attached to the bones and aid in movement. So organs, most organs have smooth muscle, and the heart has cardiac. So when we're talking about skeletal muscle, these are ones that we can have conscious control over for body movements like walking, maintaining our body posture, and all those muscles, as they contract, they're going to give off heat, and that helps maintain our internal temperature of around 98.6. Okay. Nervous system contains the brain, spinal cord, all of our nerves, and what we call special sense organs like the eyes, the ears, the taste buds. So this is going to help integrate and regulate your body activities through nerve impulses. So it's a very quick and fast response. So it detects changes in the environments, interprets the changes, and responds. So this is a feedback loop. We'll see a little bit about this in a little bit. This would be fast like a reflex. So if you put your hand on a hot stove, that pain from the heat causing your hand to jerk away, that would be a nervous response. The last system that we typically talk about is part of A&P1, or the first half of the semester, is the endocrine system, and it works with the nervous system. And here we have glands that produce chemicals called hormones. So these also help regulate and maintain body homeostasis, but it's longer acting response. So it takes longer to begin, but it lasts longer. So an example of this would be like your glucose levels being maintained by insulin. Okay, and these hormones are transmitted through the blood. All right. So cardiovascular system, blood, heart, all the blood vessels. So the heart's going to pump the blood through the blood vessels. This is important because it's going to carry oxygen and nutrients to all the tissues, bring waste back, helps regulate body temperature, body fluids, water content. Also, it will help transport some of the blood cells that are important for things like immunity. Okay, lymphatic system, a lot of times we put that in with the cardiovascular system. It's like a secondary circulatory system. So you contain the lymph fluid, the lymphatic vessels, and then you have organs like the spleen, thymus, the lymph nodes, and the tonsils. So this is your actual immune response. So it helps return proteins and fluid to the blood. So if you, for example, got stung by a bee and you notice that you get all that swelling, that excess fluid, that edema, the lymph nodes and the lymph vessels are what's going to help remove the swelling from those tissues. Lymph vessels also are what are needed. They're important in the digestive system because they carry the digested lipid pieces from your intestines into the blood. And these are where the B and T cells that are going to help protect you against diseases are matured. Okay. Respiratory system, lung, and then you have things like the pharynx, which is the throat, the larynx, trachea, and the bronchial tubes. And this essentially is getting oxygen into the body so that you can have gas exchange. Oxygen's going to go into the blood and you're going to get rid of carbon dioxide. And this is important because the carbon dioxide, if it stays in your body, can join with water to form an acid. So this helps regulate the pH of our body fluids. And then by forcing air through the vocal cords, that allows us to communicate and make sounds. Okay. Digestive system, you can see here mouth, throat, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestines, rectum, anus. And you also have a lot of what we call accessory organs, salivary glands, liver, gallbladder. So this is all the physical, chemical breakdown of food, absorbing of the nutrients, and eliminating the solid waste so that we can maintain homeostasis and make energy. Urinary system, the kidneys, ureters, the bladder, and the urethra. So this produces, stores, and gets rid of urine in the body. And as part of that urine, you're going to have some waste, like urea, so some nitrogenous waste, maybe excess calcium, excess glucose. And this helps regulate the volume and chemical composition of the blood. So you've noticed probably if you drink a lot of water, you might have to go to the bathroom a lot. If you're outside and you're sweating a lot and you get dehydrated, your urine might look a little darker. You might not pee as much because you don't want to lose too much body fluid. And this also helps regulate our acid-base balance in the body. And then reproductive systems, we have male and female. So we call them the gonads. So these are the testes in males, ovaries in females. Females also have the fallopian or uterine tubes, uterus, vagina. Men have the penis, the epididymis, the vas deferens, and then you have mammary glands. So these produce the gametes, or the sperm or the eggs, that are going to unite to form a new organism. And they also release hormones that help regulate reproduction and other body processes. So when we hit puberty, we have our growth spurt because of the estrogen, testosterone, things like that. All right. So here are some of those life processes that I mentioned that you would see as part of a living organism. And again, you would see these happening in a single cell. So metabolism, the ability to use or create energy. Responsiveness, respond to the environment. Movement, growth, differentiation, and reproduction. So metabolism are essentially all the chemical processes that occur in the body. So we have two other types. We have anabolic, which build things up. So for example, when you eat that cheeseburger because you're exercising and you build up muscle mass, that's an anabolic metabolism. If you exercise to lose weight and you lose weight, that's catabolism, or we digest because we're breaking things down. Responsiveness is our ability to detect and respond to changes in the environment. So it could be several things. It could be blood glucose levels. It could be temperature. If it's too hot outside, you go inside where it's nice and cool. You step on something sharp, you jump up to get away from it. Plants do this. Sometimes even plants do this. If you put a plant in a window, notice that it'll try to grow. Sometimes it grows at a weird angle towards the sun. Movement is motion of the whole body. So we're talking about like walking, running. But we're also talking about movement of individual organ cells, even tiny organelles inside the cells. So we're also talking about movement of substances. So blood vessels in the intestines will contract to move food along, okay, or move blood along. Growth, increase in body size. So it can either be an increase in the size of our existing cells, or it could be an increase in the number of cells or the material around the cells. Okay. Differentiation is whereby the unspecialized cells become specialized cells. So if you cut yourself, stem cells will come back and they will become, they're just generic cells, but they will become the new connective tissue, the new skin, to replace where you were cut. Or if it's an egg and a sperm, you'll go from a mass of just cells to eventually an embryo to eventually baby. And then reproduction, we can look at that two ways. Typically, when we think of reproduction, we think of having offspring or children, but it could just be the formation of new cells for repair. Again, you cut yourself, or you know that skin cells are always coming off, breaking off, sloughing off. So you could be reproducing new cells, or you could be reproducing a whole new individual. All right, I'm going to stop this part here, and I'll do part 2 next.